The massive chamber of the Galactic Council fell silent as High Counselor Tay rose from his ornate seat. His gray skin gleamed under the ethereal lights as he fixed his 4 eyes on the sole human representative. The council chamber was designed to intimidate. A soaring dome with seats arranged in rising tiers placing the 7-member High Council physically above all others. Representatives from over 300 species watched intently from their designated areas, many whispering among themselves about the unusual human presence. Ambassador Kim stood straight and proud despite being dwarfed by the enormous aliens surrounding her. She wore the deep blue uniform of the Terran Diplomatic Corps, her only decoration a small silver pin showing Earth and its single moon. Her calm expression revealed nothing of her thoughts as she faced the rulers of the largest political entity in the known galaxy. The Council has deliberated on the matter of human expansion, Tay announced, his voice amplified throughout the chamber. Your species has violated the natural order of galactic development. In merely 100 years since achieving faster-than-light travel, you have colonized 17 star systems and built a military fleet that threatens established powers. Kim remained silent, having learned that interrupting a High Counselor was considered justification for immediate removal. She had spent 5 years representing Earth's interests, often facing thinly veiled contempt from the older species who dominated galactic politics. Furthermore, Tay continued, his tone hardening, humans have made unauthorized contact with 12 pre-spaceflight civilizations, sharing technology in violation of Council preservation directives. You have mined resources from protected stellar bodies and refused inspection of your military installations. The evidence appeared on massive holographic displays around the chamber. Images of human ships, colonies, and apparent violations of Council law. Kim recognized many of the images as deliberate misrepresentations, but the Council had clearly made its decision before she even arrived. The Galactic Council hereby orders the Terran Empire to surrender control of all colonies beyond your home system and dismantle your military fleet, retaining only vessels necessary for system defense. Tay's voice echoed throughout the chamber. You have 3 planetary rotations to begin compliance. Failure will result in immediate military action. A murmur spread through the chamber. Even for the Council, known for its heavy-handed approach to emerging species, this was unusually harsh. May I respond, Counselor? Kim asked, her voice steady. Tay flicked his hand dismissively. You may speak briefly. The Terran Empire rejects these terms completely, Kim stated without hesitation. We have violated no legitimate laws. The colonies you demand belong to free human settlers who have claimed uninhabited worlds. The ships you fear were built for exploration and defense, not conquest. She stepped forward, ignoring the gasps from some delegates. More importantly, you misunderstand humanity fundamentally. Throughout our history, we have been at our most dangerous when cornered. We appear peaceful until threatened. Then we become something else entirely. Laughter rippled through the chamber. Tay's mouth twisted in what passed for a smile among his species. Your primitive emotions mean nothing to civilizations that conquered the stars when your ancestors were still discovering fire, he said. The Council has spoken. 3 rotations. Then we will show you the true meaning of power. As Kim's diplomatic shuttle departed the Council station, she opened a secure channel to Earth. They've made their decision, she reported. Exactly as we predicted. Millions of kilometers away, deep beneath the surface of the Korean peninsula on Earth, Emperor Lee reviewed military readiness reports in the fortified command center. Though only 52 years old, her face showed the strain of 20 years guiding humanity's expansion among the stars. Around her, military officers and government officials monitored global defense systems and the status of every human colony. They believed the intelligence their spies gathered, said Admiral Park, his weathered face illuminated by holographic displays showing the positions of the Terran fleet. They think our ships are primitive copies of outdated designs. Lee nodded slowly. For a century, we've hidden our true capabilities. Every leaked blueprint contained critical flaws. Every accidental display of our technology was carefully orchestrated. She brushed a strand of gray hair from her face. Did they make the demands we expected? Word for word, Park confirmed. Ambassador Kim is already on her way back. Lee stood and walked to the central display showing human territory. 17 known colonies glowing blue against the darkness of space. What the display didn't show were the additional 23 secret colonies established in regions the Council considered worthless or unexplored. Send the coded signal to all fleet commanders, she ordered. Activate the hidden shipyards and defense platforms. It's time the Council learned why, throughout Earth's bloody history, the most dangerous enemies were always those who appeared weakest before the fight began. As her orders raced across subspace channels, Lee thought about the billions of humans who would soon be fighting for their right to exist among the stars. She remembered Earth's history, how often powerful nations had underestimated smaller opponents, how technological advantage had repeatedly fallen to determination and ingenuity. The Council believes this will be simple, she told her gathered commanders. They're about to discover just how wrong they are. 3 days passed, like a held breath across human space. On colony worlds, civilians moved into underground shelters, while military personnel manned defense stations that had, until now, appeared minimal and outdated to Council observers. The waiting ended precisely when Ambassador Kim had predicted it would, not at the end of the 3-day ultimatum, but 6 hours before, when the Council forces thought they might catch the humans unprepared. The skies above Proxima Colony suddenly filled with light as 43 Council warships tore through the fabric of space. The massive vessels, primary attack ships from the hegemony forces that dominated Council military operations, moved into standard attack formation. From the bridge of his command vessel, Admiral Zex of the hegemony watched the blue-green world, with 6 eyes that blinked in sequence, a sign of anticipation in his species. Primitive defenses, he noted, studying the sensor readings that showed only a handful of orbital platforms and a small planetary shield generator. Begin the bombardment sequence. Target their major cities first, then the shield generators. The planet below General June stood in the colony's primary defense center, carved deep into the mountains of the southern continent. Around him, human operators monitored systems that had remained dormant since installation. The shelter held 15,000 colonists, while another 40,000 were spread across similar facilities around the planet. They've arrived earlier than expected, his second-in-command noted. June nodded, his expression calm despite the danger. Right on time, then. The Council always strikes early. Our observers have documented this pattern in 17 previous pacification operations. The first barrage from the Council ships lit up space. Energy weapons designed to overwhelm planetary shields through sheer power. The beams struck the seemingly modest shield protecting Proxima Colony and disappeared. No explosions, no shield. Failure, not even the expected strain on power systems. On the Council flagship, alarms began blaring. What happened? Admiral Zex demanded. Where did the energy go? His weapons officer frantically reviewed the data. Unknown, Admiral. They're shields. They're not reflecting or absorbing the energy in any way we recognize. It's as if our weapons are firing into a void. June allowed himself a small smile as he watched the enemy's confusion through their own communication channels. Channels the Council believed were secure. Quantum sync technology, he said to his team. 10 years of development in secret labs on Titan. The Council never even suspected we had this capability. He turned to his communications officer. Signal the Phantom squadrons. It's time. Across the Proxima system, sleek black ships suddenly appeared where sensors had detected nothing moments before. They had been there all along, hidden by technology reverse-engineered from a crashed Council scout ship 15 years earlier, and significantly improved by human engineers. 36 Phantom-class destroyers detected, shouted a panicked hegemony officer aboard the Council flagship. They weren't there before. Our sensors show they have weapons locked on our engines and command centers. Admiral Zex felt the unfamiliar sensation of fear creeping along his spine ridges. Impossible. The humans don't have stealth technology that advanced. The first human counterattack struck with surgical precision, rather than targeting the Council ship's heavily armored hulls. The Phantom destroyers fired specialized weapons that disrupted the enemy's shield generators. Within moments, 7 Council warships lost protective shielding. June opened a communication channel to the enemy fleet. "This is General June of the Terran Defense Force. Your shields are down on 7 vessels, and your flagship will be next. Withdraw immediately, or we will destroy your command ship." Similar scenes unfolded across human space as the Council's overwhelming first strike encountered prepared defenses and previously hidden counterattack forces. On New Eden Colony, Council landing craft faced automated defense turrets that emerged from what had appeared to be civilian structures. At the mining outpost on Tau Ceti, Council forces found themselves caught in gravitational trap fields that immobilized their vessels. Back on Earth, Emperor Lee entered the Global Broadcast Center beneath the rebuilt city of Seoul. The room fell silent as she took her position before cameras that would send her image to every human settlement. "Citizens of Earth and all Terran colonies," she began, her voice steady and determined. "For 100 years since our first contact with the Galactic Council, we have been treated as lesser beings. We have been restricted, contained, and now threatened with extinction." Displays around her showed live feeds from the ongoing battles. Council forces in disarray, human defenders revealing weapons and technologies that had been kept hidden for decades. Today, that ends. The Council believed they knew our capabilities. They believed our apparent cooperation meant weakness. Her eyes hardened. They were wrong. In homes and shelters across human space, billions watched as their leader explained what had been hidden from all but the highest levels of government. Earth's secret military buildup, the true extent of human technological development, and the network of allies they had quietly cultivated among species oppressed by Council rule. "We activate Protocol Ragnarok," she declared. "All hidden fleets, all reserved technologies, all covert alliances now come into play. We did not want this war, but we have prepared for it since the day we realized the Council would never accept us as equals." Aboard his flagship, now surrounded by human vessels that seemed to appear from nowhere, Admiral Zex received an urgent transmission from the Council capital. "The humans are counterattacking across all fronts," the message read. "Multiple Council worlds report human fleets in their systems. How did they build so many ships without detection?" As his officers frantically tried to restore shields and coordinate a retreat, Zex watched a new wave of human vessels emerge from what sensors identified as a cloaked shipyard hidden in Proxima's asteroid belt. The ships were unlike anything. In Council records, not crude copies of alien designs, but uniquely human creations incorporating technologies the Council had believed were centuries beyond Earth's capability. For the first time in his long military career, Zex gave the order to retreat without permission from the Council. As his damaged fleet limped toward the safety of hyperspace, he couldn't stop wondering how everyone had so catastrophically underestimated these humans. 2 weeks after the Council's failed first strike, Commander Zandor of the Hegemony stood before the holographic battle map with 4 of his senior officers. His usual confidence had crumbled as he reviewed the latest reports. The carefully planned invasion of human space had transformed into a defensive nightmare, with Council forces retreating on multiple fronts. "I don't understand," he muttered, his scaled skin flushing dark blue with frustration. "How do they anticipate our every move? The humans fight like they've studied our tactics for decades." His intelligence officer, a thin being with translucent skin, stepped forward. "That's because they have, Commander. We've discovered evidence that humans have been collecting data on Council military operations since their first contact with our civilization. They've been preparing for this conflict while pretending to be technologically inferior." Zandor slammed his fist on the table. "Impossible. Our security protocols were compromised," the intelligence officer interrupted. "The humans employed methods we never considered. They didn't hack our systems with technology, they used psychology. Human operatives posing as servants, maintenance workers, even entertainment providers. They gathered information through observation and conversation. Our people never suspected because we considered humans too primitive to be a threat. Across the galaxy, humanity's true capabilities were awakening like a giant from slumber." Captain Jun watched from the bridge of the Terran battleship Defiance as her fleet disengaged from their hiding places within Saturn's rings. Similar fleets emerged throughout Terran space. vessels that had been constructed in secret shipyards built inside asteroids, beneath planetary oceans, and within the atmospheres of gas giants. Her second-in-command, Lieutenant Han, monitored the deployment of their fighter squadrons. "All ships report ready, Captain. The Council Defense Fleet has no idea we're here." Jun nodded, her eyes on the tactical display showing the hegemony forces that had established a blockade around Mars. The aliens believed they were containing a small human resistance. In reality, they were about to be surrounded. "The Council believed we lacked tactical sophistication," she transmitted to her squadron. "Let's educate them on human ingenuity." The battle that followed demonstrated why humanity had survived its own violent history. Where Council forces relied on overwhelming firepower and predictable formations, human commanders employed strategies drawn from thousands of years of Earth's military history. They used feints and ambushes, sacrificed positions to gain greater advantage, and employed psychological warfare alongside conventional attacks. One by one, Council blockades fell as hidden human fleets emerged throughout the solar system. But the greatest shock came when reports arrived of Terran warships appearing in systems far from Earth. Systems that included core Council worlds where no human ships should have been able to reach without detection. In the Rigel system, home to one of the Council's primary shipyards, Admiral Kang led a fleet of stealth carriers into position. Unlike the bulky, heavily armored vessels favored by the Council races, human ships prioritized speed and versatility. Each carrier held dozens of smaller craft designed for specific tactical purposes. "The Council never understood our history," Kang told his bridge crew as they prepared to strike. "On Earth, we learned that victory doesn't always go to the largest army or the most advanced weapons. It goes to those who adapt fastest, who think differently, who turn disadvantages into strengths." His words proved prophetic as the human fleet struck the Rigel shipyards. Instead of attacking the heavily defended main facilities, they targeted power generation stations, communication arrays, and supply depots. Without direct confrontation, they crippled the shipyard's ability to function. On the Council capital world of Axion Prime, the 7 High Councilors gathered in emergency session. Tay, who had delivered the ultimatum to humanity, found himself facing the anger of his peers. "You assured us they were primitive," shouted Councilor Vex, his tentacles writhing in agitation. "Now human fleets threaten 3 of our core worlds. How did they build such forces without our knowledge?" Before Tay could respond, the chamber's security alarms activated. On the main display appeared a sight none had thought possible. A fleet of human warships had entered the Axion system, bypassing the most sophisticated detection grid in known space. Meanwhile, across Council territory, something else was happening. Something the hegemony-dominated leadership had feared more than military defeat. Subject species that had lived under Council rule for centuries were rising in rebellion, many armed with human-supplied weapons and tactics. Back on Earth, in the underwater command center beneath the Pacific Ocean, Emperor Lee reviewed reports from these uprisings with satisfaction. "The hegemony never realized their greatest vulnerability," she told her advisors. "They've oppressed too many species for too long. All these people needed was proof the Council isn't invincible." The centerpiece of humanity's strategy was revealed when the Terran flagship Indomitable, commanded by Admiral Park, appeared in orbit over Novus, a world that had been forced into Council membership a century earlier. Rather than attacking, Park opened communications with the planet's population. "People of Novus," he broadcast planet-wide. "The Terran Empire offers you something the Council never did, the chance to determine your own future. We don't come as conquerors but as liberators. Join us and together we'll build a galaxy where no species dominates another." Within hours, the Novus Defense Forces had turned on their Council overseers. Similar declarations came from worlds throughout the outer regions of Council space. The rebellion that humanity had carefully nurtured for decades bloomed into a galactic revolution. On the contested world of Proxima Colony, where the Council's first strike had failed so spectacularly, General June welcomed a delegation of former Council military officers who had defected to the human cause. For generations, the hegemony told us humans were dangerous because of your aggression and unpredictability, admitted the leader of the defectors, a tall being with crystalline features. Now we understand they feared you because you represented something worse than military threat. You represented hope for those they oppressed. June nodded solemnly. Throughout our history on Earth, humans have been both terrible oppressors and determined freedom fighters. We've learned from our mistakes. The Council wanted us to remain isolated in our corner of space. Instead, they've unleashed us on the galaxy, not just our ships and weapons, but our most dangerous export. The idea that people should be free to determine their own destiny. By the end of the third week of conflict, the Council faced not just a military defeat, but the collapse of their entire power structure. The carefully maintained myth of Council invincibility had been shattered, and dozens of species now looked to humanity not as primitive newcomers, but as the architects of a new galactic order. The ancient corridors of the Council's secondary capital on Axion 2 had never been so tense. Once proud representatives of powerful species now moved with caution, speaking in whispers as they navigated the political earthquake, triggered by humanity's unexpected resistance. 1 month into what should have been a simple pacification operation, the Council faced an existential crisis. Representative Gill moved through these shadows with practiced ease. Unlike the official human ambassador who had boldly rejected the Council's ultimatum, Gill had no official standing. His presence on Axion 2 was not recorded in any database, his meetings not scheduled in any calendar. Tonight, he wore the environmental suit of a maintenance worker, the kind of person most Council members would never bother to look at directly. He slipped into an unused meeting chamber where 5 figures waited nervously. Each represented a different Council species, and together they controlled nearly a third of the votes in the full assembly. "You're late," hissed Delegate Kree, a tall, willowy being whose species had been among the founding members of the Galactic Council millennia ago. Once proud allies of the hegemony, they had grown increasingly uncomfortable with the dominant faction's heavy-handed approach. "Security patrols have increased," Gill replied calmly, removing his disguise to reveal the formal diplomatic attire beneath. "The hegemony grows more paranoid by the day." He placed a small device on the center of the table. It emitted a soft blue light that expanded to form a protective bubble around the group, a field that would scramble any listening devices and make their conversation appear as routine maintenance chatter to outside observers. "My government offers terms for peace," Gill explained, sliding a data crystal across the table. "These are not demands from a conqueror, but a framework for coexistence. We believe most Council species will find them fair." Delegate Zorn, representing a species of silicon-based life forms, picked up the crystal with appendages that resembled delicate glass fingers. "The hegemony would never allow this. They pushed for this war specifically to prevent humans from gaining influence." Gill smiled. "We know. We've been watching the Council for decades, studying the power dynamics. We know who controls whom, who profits from exploitation, and who suffers under the current system." He activated a hologram showing a complex web of connections between various Council species, with the hegemony at the center. Branching from this were smaller networks showing resources extracted from subject worlds, military deployments, and what appeared to be secret agreements. "Your intelligence network is impressive," whispered Delegate Tora, whose amphibious species controlled major trade routes. "This would have taken centuries to compile." "Humans are naturally curious," Gill replied, "and we've had help." With a gesture, he expanded the hologram to reveal dozens of species secretly allied with Earth, many of them officially loyal Council members who had been quietly feeding information to humanity for years. "Impossible," Kree breathed. "Some of these species have been under Council authority since before humans discovered electricity." "Exactly," Gill said. "Some have waited thousands of years for a chance at genuine independence. Others simply grew tired of hegemony domination. When we arrived on the galactic stage, we found many willing to help us prepare." "You've been planning this response since first contact," Kree realized, blinking rapidly in what Gil recognized as shock. The technological backwardness, the limited expansion, the apparent military weakness, it was all misdirection. Humanity always prepares for the worst, Gil replied. It's how we've survived our own violent history. When we met the Council and saw how the hegemony treated lesser species, we recognized a pattern we've seen many times on Earth. So yes, we prepared. Delegate Zorn's crystalline body reflected the hologram's light as she examined the peace terms. These are surprisingly reasonable. No demands for territory beyond what humans already claimed. No reparations, just recognition of independence for any world that wishes it, and reforms to the Council's governing structure. We don't want to destroy the Council, Gil explained. A stable galactic community benefits everyone. We just want to end the hegemony's control over it. The meeting continued for hours as Gil answered questions and addressed concerns. By the time he donned his maintenance disguise again to leave, all 5 delegates had agreed to present the terms to their governments. Meanwhile, in the Council's primary chamber, High Counselor Tay faced growing opposition. Once the undisputed voice of Council authority, he now struggled to maintain control as reports of military defeats and planetary rebellions flooded in. The human resistance must be crushed completely, he insisted, his normally composed demeanor cracking under pressure. We have called up our reserve fleets. We have activated weapons platforms unused for centuries. Victory is still possible. Counselor Nira, whose species had privately questioned the wisdom of attacking Earth from the beginning, rose from her seat. At what cost, Counselor Tay? Already, 17 Council worlds have declared independence. Our economy falters as trade routes are disrupted. The humans have shown restraint in their counterattacks. They've targeted military installations while avoiding civilian populations. Can we claim the same moral high ground? Restraint? Tay scoffed. They're savages who got lucky. Their apparent mercy is merely a ploy to divide us. Perhaps, said Nira calmly. But it's working. I move that we consider the peace proposal, transmitted by the Terran government. Murmurs swept through the chamber. What peace proposal? Demanded Tay. We've received no such communication. Nira's expression remained neutral as she replied. It seems, Counselor, that some of us are still deemed worthy of diplomatic contact. The proposal was delivered to several delegation heads early this morning. Back on Earth, Emperor Li reviewed the shifting political landscape with her advisors. The Grand War Room beneath the Pacific had transformed from military headquarters to diplomatic command center, with analysts tracking political movements across Council space. The coalition is forming faster than we anticipated, reported Minister Yoon, head of interstellar relations. Already 28 species have indicated support for our proposed reforms. If the trend continues, we'll have majority support within the Council Assembly within days. Lee nodded thoughtfully. And the hegemony? Admiral Park grimaced. Predictably stubborn. Their military continues to consolidate around their core worlds. Intelligence suggests they're preparing a major counter-offensive. Let them, Lee said, calmly. Every aggressive action they take only strengthens our diplomatic position. The more reasonable we appear in comparison, the more allies we gain. A communications officer approached with an urgent message. Emperor, we've just received word from our operative on Axion 2. The Council Assembly has called for an emergency vote on opening formal peace negotiations. The vote passed, overriding hegemony objections. Cheers erupted throughout the command center, but Lee raised a hand for silence. This isn't victory yet. The hegemony won't surrender their power without a final gambit. She turned to Admiral Park. Double the security around our new allies' homeworlds. The hegemony may attempt to make examples of those who've sided with us. As preparations continued on Earth, Representative Gill met once more with his growing coalition on Axion 2. What had begun as a secret meeting of 5 dissidents had grown to a gathering of 37 species representatives. The old era is ending, he told them, no longer needing disguises or secret meetings. Together, we will build something better, a galactic community based on mutual respect rather than domination and fear. Delegate Kree, now openly allied with The human cause watched the gathering with wonder. When the Council sent their ultimatum to Earth 1 month ago, did your people anticipate this outcome? Gil smiled. We hoped for it. Humans have a saying, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. We suspected the hegemony had made many enemies over the millennia. We just needed to show the galaxy that resistance was possible. As the meeting concluded, news arrived that would forever change galactic politics. The hegemony had attempted a military coup within the Council itself, trying to seize control of the central government by force. The attempt had failed, thanks to warnings provided by human intelligence networks. The diplomatic tremors had become an earthquake, and the old order was crumbling. The massive Terran flagship Indomitable hung in orbit above Axion Prime, the jewel of the Galactic Council's domain. Its sleek, dark hull contrasted sharply with the ornate golden architecture of the Council orbital stations. 3 months had passed since the Council's ultimatum to Earth, and the galaxy had transformed in ways no one, except perhaps the humans, had anticipated. Admiral Park stood at the viewport of the Indomitable's command deck, watching shuttles ferry diplomats between the flagship and the Council's Grand Assembly Station. His weathered face showed little emotion, but his eyes reflected the weight of what they had accomplished. Strange to be here as guests rather than conquerors, commented Captain High, his executive officer. We could have destroyed their civilization as they threatened to destroy ours. Park nodded slowly. That's what they expected, what the hegemony convinced everyone we would do if given the chance. They projected their own nature onto us. Below them, Axion Prime gleamed like a multicolored jewel. The planet served as home to representatives from over 500 species, with architecture and environments adapted to countless biological needs. It was a marvel of engineering and cooperation, even if that cooperation had been enforced by hegemony dominance for millennia. The Emperor's broadcast begins in 10 minutes, High reminded him. All systems are ready. Across the galaxy, billions of beings on thousands of worlds prepared to witness the address. On planets that had been part of the Council for eons and on newly recognized independent worlds alike, view screens and holographic projectors focused on the coming transmission. Even on distant Earth, humans gathered in homes and public squares to watch the culmination of their long-hidden strategy. Emperor Li stood before the transmission array in the Grand Assembly's central chamber. Unlike her previous addresses from secure bunkers on Earth, this time she stood in the open, surrounded by representatives of nearly 400 species, most of whom had been enemies just months before. The chamber itself told the story of the recent upheaval. Damage from the hegemony's failed coup attempt was still visible on one wall, while the hegemony's ceremonial seats remained conspicuously empty. Their delegates were now confined to observer status, their voting rights suspended, pending investigation of their leadership's crimes. We are ready, Emperor, said the Council's technical director, a being whose body resembled a collection of luminous gas contained within a transparent exoskeleton. Li nodded, straightening her formal uniform. She had refused to wear the traditional robes of council ceremony, choosing instead to appear as what she was, a military leader who had defended her people against extinction. The transmission began, and Li's image appeared simultaneously on countless worlds. Citizens of the galaxy, she began, her voice calm and measured. 3 months ago, the Galactic Council, dominated by hegemony interests, presented Earth with an ultimatum. Surrender our independence or face destruction. Today I stand in the very chamber where that threat was issued, not as a conquered enemy, but as an ally to a reformed council. She gestured to the assembled representatives around her. What the hegemony never understood about humanity is that we learned from our own bloody history. We've experienced empires rise and fall. We've seen tyrants come to power and be overthrown. We know that true strength lies not in domination, but in cooperation. The camera panned to show the extensive damage to the chamber from the hegemony's attempted coup. When faced with the loss of power, the hegemony chose violence, proving what many species had long suspected. Their leadership had never been about maintaining galactic stability, but about maintaining control. Li activated a holographic display that showed evidence of the hegemony's centuries of manipulation. Secret agreements, threatened invasions, economic coercion used to control supposedly independent worlds. We could have responded to their aggression with equal force, she continued. Our fleets now control key systems throughout Council space. We have the military advantage. She paused deliberately. Instead, we choose a different path. The hologram shifted to display the document that had been under negotiation for weeks, the new Galactic Charter. Today, representatives from 394 species have signed a new compact. The reformed Galactic Council will continue, but with fundamental changes. All member worlds receive equal voting rights. Military forces will be distributed among member species, rather than concentrated under one group's control. And most importantly, any world may choose independence, without fear of reprisal. In homes across Earth, humans watched with pride as their leader reshaped the political landscape of the galaxy. Children who had grown up believing humanity was a minor player in cosmic affairs now witnessed their species taking center stage. Anu, New Eden Colony, where the Council's invasion had been repelled so decisively, General June watched with his troops. This is why we fought, he told them. Not for conquest, but for the right to determine our own future, and to extend that right to others. Back in the council chamber, Lee continued her address. To the hegemony worlds, we offer peace. Your people are not responsible for the actions of your leaders. Representatives who reject the policies of conquest will be welcomed back into galactic affairs. Her expression hardened slightly. But the days of hegemony dominance are over. As Lee's speech concluded, the assembly erupted in a cacophony of sounds, the equivalent of applause from hundreds of different species. Standing near the Earth delegation, High Minister Jin prepared to sign the formal alliance between Earth and the Reformed Council. Humanity's greatest weapon was never its ships or technology, she observed to Representative Gill. It was your capacity to turn enemies into allies, to find common ground even with those who once threatened you. Gill nodded. We had good teachers. Our own history. Earth was divided for most of its existence, with nations fighting endless wars. We learned that lasting peace comes not from victory, but from creating systems where cooperation benefits everyone. In the system that had once housed the hegemony's largest shipyard, now under control of its formerly subjugated workers, thousands watched the ceremony with tears in their eyes. For generations, they had built the vessels that enforced council, dominance while living as virtual slaves. Now they were free. As the final signatures were applied to the new charter, Admiral Park watched from the Indomitable's bridge. With the formal peace established, most of the human fleet would soon return to Earth and its colonies. We came to the stars prepared for war, he mused to Captain High, but found our true destiny in forging peace. High nodded. The hegemony never understood what made humans dangerous. They thought it was our aggression or our technology, but it was our adaptability, our ability to learn from both our mistakes and theirs. Beyond the viewport, ships from dozens of species gathered. Once enemies, now allies. Some had fought alongside humans against the hegemony. Others had simply refused to fight against Earth. Together, they represented the first truly cooperative interstellar alliance in galactic history. On Earth, Emperor Lee's recorded words echoed through plazas and homes. This is not the end of our journey, but the beginning. We have survived our trial by fire. We have proven ourselves worthy of our place among the stars. Now we must prove ourselves worthy of the trust placed in us by hundreds of species who look to Earth not as conquerors, but as liberators. The sun set over the Pacific Ocean, where 3 months earlier, Lee had activated humanity's hidden defenses. Now those same command centers coordinated humanitarian aid to worlds damaged in the conflict and technical assistance to newly independent planets. A new galactic order had been born, not from the ashes of total war, but from the careful balance of strength and restraint. The Council's threat had indeed backfired, but in doing so, had created something greater than either side had imagined possible.